Robert Karnick, and I'm a designer. Even after doing this for 20 years, my mom still doesn't know what I do. Maybe it's the way I tell her, though. You can decide. You see, everything I know about design can be boiled down to three things: Legos, dish soap, and yarn. For me, it started with Legos, the original building block of creativity. 2x4s, 2x2s, 1x1s. I love the proportions, the size, the colors, the strength of them all. I'm talking old school Legos here. Not all this modern, bionicle, and techniques and the Harry Potter-inspired playset. With them, I could build anything I wanted to. Houses, cars, skyscrapers, rocket ships. An interesting fact about Lego: the patent on Legos actually ran out a long, long time ago. Anyone can make them. They just do it better than anyone else. And they do that because they control the design and the engineering, not just of the actual Legos, but of the machines that make them. So after playing with Legos, I went to school. And all my teachers from a very young age told me the same thing. Bob's really good at art, math, and science. Bobby just loves to draw. He should be an artist when he grows up. Bob is always building things, constantly building things. I bet he'll be an architect. You know, Mr. and Mrs. Karnick, Bob's really good at math and science. He just doesn't apply himself. But if he ever did, I bet he'd be a great engineer. So engineering it was, and I went off to Auburn University to study engineering. And if Auburn is known for one thing, it's academics. So I began my career, my schooling in engineering. And I loved engineering except for three things: physics, calculus, chemistry. After taking a freshman drafting course, I talked to my professor and asked him, so when do I get to take my next drawing class where I get to put down all my great ideas and things I've always wanted to come up with? That's it. You're done. You know now how to read engineering drawings. From here, that's all there is. And he was right. That's it. I was done. So I said, I know. I'll be an architect, like Mike Brady. But the School of Architecture was already closed. It was at capacity for that year. So they suggested, why don't you go over to the School of Industrial Design? I said, industrial design, what's that? And they said, well, it's like architecture, but for equipment and stuff like that. Go over to Smith Hall and ask for Professor Shera. So I went over to Smith Hall, I opened the doors, and doves flew out. And the sounds of angels playing harps were in the background. Well, not really, but students were there sketching ideas, rendering illustration, building models, and testing contraptions, and they were all having fun. It was what I always wanted to do, and now it had a name: industrial design. And it changed the way I thought about things forever. Well, just like my Legos, my design education was old school as well, really old school, like the Bauhaus in 1920. My professors were really old school too, and they did things that would get professors fired these days. They were highly sarcastic, they were critical, derogatory, and a lot of the time just plain mean. During our presentations, they would scribble on our drawings, and they would break our models and tell us, making fun of our Mickey Mouse drawings, and you should run home to Mommy and Daddy and hang it on the fridge, and so they can pat you on the head and say, good boy. It was brutal, but I learned. I learned not only the tools and techniques of design, but also the philosophy of design and design thinking. You see, design can't be taught, but it can be learned. Now, after I left school, I learned some other things. And actually in product development, there are way more failures than successes. In fact, only about 15% of new products actually succeed. So that's a pretty low number. How can you fix that? Well, I want to tell you a story about two guys working in a garage in California. Okay, this isn't about Apple or Microsoft or even Hewlett-Packard. Remember, this is about dish soap. This is the arms race for your countertop. It's a functional category primarily sold on price. It's full of glaring colors, generic shapes, large containers, and chemical smells. And they're made by billion-dollar companies like Procter & Gamble, Colgate-Palmolive, and S.C. Johnson. If you had a great idea for a dish soap, how could you possibly compete against this? So now back to the story of the two guys in the garage. One of them was a brilliant chemist, and he knew how to make environmentally responsible formulations that would clean better than anything on the market. The other was a designer, and he knew that they didn't have to compete directly against these giants. They only needed 1% of the market. Now, going back to my engineering education, 1% of $1 billion is a lot of money. This is Method, and their legion of loyal fans are known as people against dirty. Not just dirt and grime, but also against toxic chemicals, non-recyclable materials, and unsustainable production processes. What Method didn't have with these two guys at the beginning is they didn't have the budget for multi-million-dollar research projects. But what they did have were friends and family who would invite them into their homes and watch them actually wash dishes. One of the observations that they made was that most people put the bottle underneath the counter because it was ugly. So they realized that there was a segment of the population there that wanted to do more than just clean their house, but wanted to beautify their home. One of Method's slogans, or their taglines, is "clean like a mother." So it's gentle and soft and beautiful, so it cleans like mom, but it also cleans like a mother. What their method, pun intended, was to use people as a source for inspiration. In design, we call this observational research or ethnography, and it has its roots in archaeology and anthropology. And much like archaeology, ethnography helps you uncover the bones. But you have to ask yourself the question, can you build the dinosaur? Designers can build the dinosaur. We can make it three-dimensional, we can engage all the senses, we can make it real. Oh yeah, the guys from Method, yeah, they got their 1% of the market, and a little bit more. So this kind of helps illustrate a little bit of how design thinking can help two people compete against $1 billion corporations. But it can also be just as significant when billion-dollar companies allow themselves to learn from two people. Now, before I joined Robrady Design here in Sarasota, I worked for Philips Design, which is the design agency within Philips Electronics. One of the divisions of Philips is Philips Medical, and they make some of the most advanced medical equipment in the world, like MRI machines, CT scanners. While I was there, I had the privilege of actually working in an installation for the Advocate Lutheran Children's Hospital. This is a treatment facility for kids with cancer and other terminal illnesses. So I don't know if you've ever had a chance to have an MRI or a CT scan, but let me explain it to you. You walk into this very cold room, you're put onto a table with things that look more like a torture rack than a piece of advanced medical equipment, and then a technician wearing a lead vest says to you, "Don't worry, everything's just fine. I'm just going to leave the room for a little bit." The door closes, and the next thing you hear is, "Please remain still during the scanning process." It's scary. Now imagine you're 8 years old, you have cancer, and you do this every week. And after the procedure is done, you can hear your parents and your doctors talking out in the hallway about how your condition is progressing. One of the other things we also noticed was a mother who had come up with a brilliant innovation. A way that she could stay connected with her son was to tie a piece of yarn to his finger. And when he was having his scan and became scared, she would say, pull on the yarn, I'll pull back, and you know that I'm there. So here we were, a $35 billion company with 600 designers, an army of engineers, and a mother had come up with a better way to stay connected with her child than we could. That was our inspiration, and this is the ambient experience. And it's a lot more than just butterflies and ladybugs. These are timed animations that are sequenced along with the procedure that's happening. So during a scanning process, you pick a character that you can be involved with. We start by designing the experience from the waiting room. Here, we have a model of a miniature cat scanner or kitten scanner. So here the kids can actually put the stuffed animals on the cat scanner, push it into the machine, and see that Ollie the elephant, he has a tummy ache. He has goldfish in his tummy. How did those get there? Okay? So now the kids understand what's going to happen to them. It's a machine that looks inside of them to figure out what's making them sick. From there, they can choose their own adventure. They can be a spaceman. They can be an undersea explorer. They can be a caterpillar morphing into a butterfly. Now they're in control of the experience. From here, the results were significant. That kids, during the process, when there was that scanning process would happen, there would be a countdown. Time for the spaceman to leave the capsule. Hold your breath for 20 seconds. Great. I finally got to design that spaceship I always wanted. And the results were significant here. A 30% reduction in sedation. Usually these procedures are so scary and the kids have a hard time staying still. They have to be sedated to keep them still. The efficiency or the throughput out of the machines, as they call it, was 20%. This is a good thing, not just financially, but doctors get to see more kids every day. And a hidden benefit from this, it works for kids, it works for adults. Wouldn't you rather go to some place that seemed more like a yoga class than a torture chamber? This is the real reason why I became a designer. It serves the higher purpose. Designers want to help people, and they want to make a significant impact in people's lives. Another thing I believe is that everyone is a designer. And it's not just about being able to draw pretty pictures or making great models or wearing interesting, trendy eyewear, skinny jeans, and neon watches. Design is really about watching and listening. Really watching and really listening, like a mother does. So even though my mom doesn't know what I do for a living, I know that I'm a better designer because of my mom. And if you can all just do me one favor, if you see my mom, please tell her what I do for a living. Thank you.